So guys, just jumped in the car, been sitting at the tax office all day, and while I was in the waiting room, scrolled Facebook Marketplace as I do several times a day, and I came across a 2013 Scion FRS for the low price of $4,300 or best offer. So it piqued my interest. It was very close, like a 15-minute drive from my taxman/accountant's office. So I messaged them, they were there, said come on by. So let's go take a look at it. I'll put the ad from Marketplace up here on the side of the screen so you can get a quick look at it. Off the bat, it says it does have a salvage title, does not say due to what, and it does say that there may be some issues with the engine. So let's go down there and check it out, see if it's a project we could pick up for the channel, because I know a lot of you are looking for FRS, BRZ, and GT86 content.
Got a spun rod and bearing. It's typical Subaru engine.
Gotcha.
When people beat on them, so.
Yeah, well.
You got the key for it? Ooh, Lord. Got a lot of oil on that side of the timing cover. I wonder if it ever got its valve spring recall done. Probably not now. But the first one's come seen it. Can't tell. I thought it looked like there was metal on the dipstick, but yeah, there's some metal in that. It's awful quiet though.
So guys, there is some video clips of me checking the car out. We'll switch back and forth between some of these clips. Didn't do any commentary while I was there, really, just taking a couple clips as I was there looking at the car, as anyone else would, you know, check out a car. I didn't go as Mr. Subaru to film a YouTube video. So again, rundown, this is a 2013 Scion FRS, aka Subaru BRZ or Toyota GT86. It is a limited trim, had leather interior, was a 6-speed manual, 101,000 and some change on the mileage, so relatively low mileage. As it stated in the ad, it had a salvage title, but we didn't know before going what the salvage reason was, and it noted that there was probably some kind of mechanical issue with the engine, but they weren't sure. So, went and checked it out. Again, $4,300 asking if they delivered it, $4,000 if I trailered it home myself, so it wasn't a terribly bad price for the car, depending on the variables of how bad it was mechanically and how bad it had been wrecked, flooded, or other to get its salvage title. So get over there, check the car out. As you can see, well, probably not in the clips before, but I'll put a clip in now of the interior. The interior was absolutely filthy. Back seat, floorboards, just really, really dirty. Needed a thorough cleaning, a thorough detailing. Just trash in the back seat, not trash so much as just dirt and debris built up on the leather interior. Tons of mud and stuff in the floor pan. There was some damage to the dashboard in the center above the center air vents. It was peeled up. There was a traction control light on, I believe an ABS light on, a check engine light on, and I think an airbag light. I can't recall off the top of my head. Unfortunately, I did not have my scan tool with me when I went to look at this car, as I left straight from the tax office and went to look at it. I really wish I brought my scan tool so I could have scanned it and seen what codes were in it. Guys, if you're going to go look at a used car, it's always a good tip to get a cheap pocket code reader just to take along in case you have a check engine light. Check those codes. Don't rely on what the seller is telling you. When you are going to buy a used car, this is a business transaction. Most likely, you do not know these people and have never met them in your life that are trying to sell you the vehicle. You have no reason to give them any trust whatsoever. It's just business. They're trying to sell a car. They might be honest with you, or they might do some underhanded tactics because they want it gone and they want the money. You have to be an informed buyer and be cautious and ask the right questions. Now, when I go look at a car for a sale like this, I always ask questions as a litmus test. I want to know if the seller is going to be honest or if they're going to lie to me. And that kind of skews which way I take the conversation and negotiation. And I say that because the car will tell me more than the owner ever can, 90% of the time. Now, in the case of this vehicle, first thing on the docket, it's got a salvage title. So as soon as I get there, I ask, do you happen to know why the title is salvaged out? Did you buy it with a salvage title? Or did you own the car and have a wreck or a flood damage or a theft recovery and it was salvaged out due to that? Because not always is the car involved in a catastrophic wreck or in flood damage to get a salvage title. Sometimes it could be stolen and recovered by the police, and that's enough to salvage out some vehicles in some states, so just be wary of that. A salvage title is not always an indication that the car is a wrecked and patched up piece of junk. Now, in this case, I found out that the car had been wrecked. I asked the owner if they knew why it was salvaged, and they said they weren't sure. I don't think the damage was that bad. I know it wasn't a flood. And I said, well, maybe it was a theft recovery. Yeah, maybe it was a theft recovery. So I started looking the car over. Now, I've never done body work, but when I had my first shop years ago, I happened to be right beside a body shop, and I struck a good relationship with the owner of that body shop, and he taught me a lot about checking for body repair and checking out bad body repair. So the first thing I do is check panel gap fitment around headlights and taillights. And with this FRS BRZ, the good thing is that the body panels, the main body panels, all have the VIN number on it. So I went around and I looked at the VIN number on the hood, the front fenders, the doors, the trunk lid to make sure they all matched and were all original to the car. Now, when I got all the way around the car, everything matched until I got to the driver's door. When I opened up the driver's door and looked in the door jamb, the VIN plate on that door was from a different vehicle. It had a different VIN number. There was also some yellow writing, as you see at the top of the door jamb, which indicates that that door came from a salvage yard or a reseller or auto recycler. So I knew then that it had been hit and reconstructed. That's why it had a salvage title. After further looking, I know that it's been hit in the door and the door's been replaced. You always want to check the perimeter around that door or around that body panel that's been struck. So I started looking up the A pillar in the door jamb, down the B pillar, C pillar, looking in the door jamb near the striker plate, and looking at the rear fender wheel well area back to the tail lights. And I found that there was evidence of paint, and there was some blending, and there was some orange peel across the A pillar all the way down to the C pillar. And then when I got down to the wheel well, I could see some body filler cracking, also some paint cracking where there had been some correction done around that wheel well. So definitely it had been struck. Now, when I said, oh, look, the door has a different VIN number, it must have got hit in the door. The owner quickly changed up the story and said, oh, well, if you Google the serial number, the VIN number, you can see pictures of it wrecked. So while I was looking it over, they put in the VIN number and pulled up a insurance auction listing for the vehicle, and you could see that it had been hit in the door, hit in the rear quarter panel, and had some substantial damage to the left side of the vehicle. So now I know why it's salvage. I know it was in a wreck, and it wasn't really, it was probably a professional repair, but there's levels in body repair. You can pay a ton of money to get it almost perfect, but you'll never get a car back to the way it was new. And this one was a lower tier repair. There was orange peel in the paint. There was cracking body filler and paint around where metal had been reconstructed. It just wasn't a great repair. So that was a big detriment to me buying it. Had it been a theft recovery or something else, I'd be more inclined to it. But the fact that it had been hit and repaired poorly already took dollars and cents off of the sales price in my head. Moving on to the mechanical issues. I believe it stated in the ad that the bearings were washed out and would need engine work. I think that's the way they phrased it. Well, you and I all know that BRZ FRS GT86 is sold primarily to young kids that beat the living crap out of these cars and think they have bought something from Fast and Furious and normally drive them as such. That's just the demographic that normally buys these cars. They buy them and they beat the ever-living crap out of them. Now, not all of them. Some of them middle-aged people buy, some of them, young adults buy that are responsible, but a lot of times they are modified and they are driven very hard. That's just the fact of the matter. So it's not uncommon for these cars to spin a rod bearing. They're not turbocharged, they don't have but 200 horsepower, but guys don't maintain them, they run them low on oil, they rev the crap out of them, and you are going to spin a rod bearing eventually with a ton of abuse. So the car went through the auction wrecked at about 86,000 miles, showing on the listing that was pulled up on Google, 101,000 miles. I saw the title. They had titled it at 100,000 and some odd miles. I believe they only drove like 80 miles on the car. So likely the damage was done before they bought it. Unfortunately for these people, they must have bought the car. It had been patched up and it just fell apart once they got it. I don't know how much they paid for it, and I do feel bad for them, losing that kind of money buying the car. But in the other turn, the husband's a mechanic, heavy-duty diesel. After talking to him on the phone, because he wasn't present, said they had drained the oil, there was glitter in the oil, so there was likely bearing material and other stuff coming out of the engine, and put a ton of Lucas oil treatment in there, and that stuff is very thick, and that's why when I started it, it sounded pretty normal. It was a little loud. You could hear the high-pressure fuel pump, but they're always loud on these direct injection engines, but it was pretty quiet compared to probably what it actually sounded like if it had 020 or 530 oil in it, which would have been the typical loud clack, 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 clack knocking sound of an EJ or FA series engine when they spin a rod bearing. So, given the fact that this car was going to need an engine, it was going to need a small block, the body damage, the interior condition, looking it over, the brakes were pretty rusty, probably was going to need brakes. I didn't even get to look under the car, under the chassis, to see what was a problem there. Didn't get to look at suspension componentry, like control arm bushings, things of that nature. So there was a lot of what ifs. The engine hurt, I couldn't drive it that far. So I have to go on what I can see as it's set. So $4,000 for a 13 with 100,000 miles. Even if you have to put an engine in it, that wouldn't be a bad purchase, because looking at what they go for right now on Marketplace and eBay, they're still selling for around $13 or $12 to $18,000, and that one is considered low mileage for a 2013 with 101,000 miles. Now, a short block for this engine from SubaruParts.com is about $2,400 or $2,300. I'm going off memory here. Now, when you get the short block, you're still going to have to go through the heads. You're going to have to flush out anything in the AVCS system with metal debris that got through the heads, anything there. You're going to need an engine seal kit. Granted, it's cheaper and less seals than involved in an EJ series engine, because the majority of the FA20 is sealed with RTV silicone, but you still have that cost to think about. You have to think about, I believe the side curtain airbag was deployed on the driver's side when it was struck. I can't recall if that airbag module had been replaced or not. I pulled back the headliner. I'm not sure if I saw a new module or if they had cut it out and tucked it back in there. You got to think about that. You got to think about programming for the airbag module. You got to think about the traction control system, whatever issue was going on there, whether it be wheel speed sensor, ABS stuff, or something else. It did have an Exody Stage 2 clutch, I believe I was told. So obviously a clutch before 100,000 miles, someone really was beating on this thing because they tore the clutch out of it. So those are things you got to think about. You got to think about the current condition. You got to think about the state of it. You got to think about any kind of body damage or body repair. You got to think about any kind of mechanical. So given everything I looked at, not to lowball the people, but I went ahead and walked away because me, myself, personally, looking at this vehicle, the most money I would be willing to put into it, given the state of it mechanically and physically, would be between $1,500 and $1,800 because there's no way I could give $4,000. And $4,000 is a very low price on this car for a 2013, but given the salvage title, the poorly repaired body damage, the mechanical issues, and the unknown that I don't even know about because I can't do a full inspection on it, that's a big pass. I wasn't going to lowball them because they had a ton of people coming wanting to offer more than their asking price to hold the car. More power to those people. Hopefully whoever purchased it, because it is showing sold now, hopefully they didn't get a nightmare or something they didn't bargain for. Hopefully they were well aware that they were going to replace the engine and it had a salvage title and you know that it was going to be a lot of money to get the car right. Could have been someone going to grab it, put a junkyard engine and do a quick flip on it and pass it on to the next guy. Who knows? But that's not something I was interested in doing. Still continuing to look out for FRS BRZ GT86 vehicles. I don't particularly like the cars myself. I've driven them. It's not something I would want to really own as a daily driver for myself. But if I can find one in this kind of state for the right money, I will buy one for you guys so I can put out some content on these vehicles because for years I've had guys asking about them. I mean, it's 2022. They came out in the early 20-teens. It's time for me to get my hands on one, and I've had no luck locally getting anyone to bring me one to work on to make some videos for you guys. So again, be wary of sellers when looking at used vehicles. Always have your head on straight. Never trust anyone you're going into a business deal with. Or at the end of the day, this is a business deal. This is not your buddy. This is not your friend. This is someone you've likely never met before. You are looking to buy a product from them and they are looking to unload a product on you. So be wary. Know the signs, know the things to look out for, ask questions, see if you trip them up. If you trip, a lot of times when people are lying, you ask enough questions and they start forgetting their lies and they start telling you incorrect information from what they had just told you. So use that stuff to help protect yourself in one of these situations when you're looking at a used car. Buying a used car can be scary, but don't let it be terrifying. There are simple steps and simple things you can do as just an average buyer. You don't have to be a Subaru expert to go in and get a good vehicle. If you're ever, not sure about something, ask if you can do a pre-purchase inspection. It is worth the money, guys, to let the owner and you come to an agreement, you pay for an inspection, take it to your mechanic, get it checked over. It's worth a couple $100 for a pre-purchase inspection rather than spending thousands of dollars on a car that has a major issue like the engine or the transmission. You don't want to get that piled up in your lap. Being a used car, you won't have a warranty to save you and it'll be more money out of pocket and it's just not something you want to get into. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative and helpful for you. I will see you guys in the next one.